So if we treat fragments as mini activities, each with its own independent life cycle in UI, how does that compare to the life cycle of a real activity? Well, as you might expect, the basic life cycle events are much the same as the parent activity. And as it moves through the cycles of starts, resumes, pauses, and stops, those same life cycle events will be triggered within the fragment itself. So in most cases, you can simply move anything that you would have put into the activity's lifecycle handlers into the corresponding fragment handlers, with of course a couple of exceptions. Rather than building your UI here in onCreate, Fragments introduced a new event specifically for this. onCreateView is where you construct or inflate your UI, hook it up to any data sources, and return it to the parent activity, which can then integrate it into its view hierarchy. There's a corresponding onDestroyView handler, which is called immediately before the fragment is added to the backstack, independent of the parent activity. Now, keep in mind that the Fragment Manager can add any fragment transactions, adding, removing, or replacing fragments to the backstack with a single parent activity's actives. So a fragment can move through this cycle multiple times independent of the host activity. So onDestroyView is where you should clean up any resources specifically related to the UI, such as bitmaps in memory, cursors to data, anything like that, to help ensure that your app's memory footprint isn't bloated by data that's not needed when the fragment isn't visible. Now, as soon as the fragment is returned from the backstack, onCreateView is called, and you can recreate the UI and reconnect data sources before your fragment transitions through the rest of the lifecycle to become active again. And because a fragment can only exist within an activity, we also need callbacks to tell us when a fragment is attached and detached from its parent. OnAttach is your opportunity to get a reference to the parent activity, while onDetach is the last thing that happens even after your fragment has technically been destroyed. Now, the final piece of the puzzle is onActivityCreated. This notifies our fragment that the parent activity has completed its onCreate handler and represents the point at which we can safely interact with its UI, potentially including other fragments. Now, just like the activity lifecycle we discussed in Lesson 3, once the fragment is no longer visible, there's a chance it will be terminated with no further code being executed. That can happen after onStop in the case of the activity being terminated while the fragment is part of that activity's view hierarchy, or after onDestroyView if the fragment has already been placed in the backstack once the activity is destroyed.